It feels like we've been covering Rise of the Tomb Raider for almost a solid year at this point, and it sure does seem like the coverage isn't slowing down. This time though, we thought it would be interesting to compare the recent footage of the game running on a PlayStation 4 Pro against a high-end PC running the game at a native 4K using the very high preset. Now, based on what little footage is available, I actually feel like the game is looking quite good on the PS4 Pro. After all, this is a very difficult title to run at a native 4K, one which demands a very beefy GPU just to reach a stable 30 FPS, so to get this close on console hardware is pretty impressive. That said, of the games shown at the PlayStation meeting last week, Rise of the Tomb Raider was looking slightly softer than the other offerings, and it certainly shows when comparing against the PC. It's a massive jump over native 1080p, and it does look quite clean in motion. When combined with HDR, which you cannot see in this video, it should look pretty great. At least part of the loss in image quality seems to stem from the reduction in specular lighting quality. This was a feature that was patched into the PC version designed to eliminate edges like this. When comparing PS4 Pro footage here, you can see the difference here in the ceiling area. We also noticed some oddities like the sparks in this scene, which show an artifact likely related to the selected rendering method. But the differences go much further than screen resolution, of course. The PS4 Pro version uses the same high texture preset as Xbox One, rather than the very high quality textures available on the PC. It's especially evident here, though there is an interesting depth of field added on PS4 Pro. Then we move into the next scene, a fast-paced escape sequence. As Lara climbs the barrier, take a look up here. We notice missing lighting in this scene on the PS4 Pro. Perhaps the lack of haze is actually caused by the lack of fire, as you see here. It's certainly a peculiar change in this scene. You can see the contact shadows in this area. We're actually using HBAO Plus on the PC here, which is standard for the very high setting, rather than the much more expensive VXAO. Looks like PS4 is pretty consistent here. Then we push on through before coming up on the next scene. Once again, it's clear that we're not seeing the very high textures here. This shot of the distant area, however, compares very favorably to the PC version without any real noticeable loss in detail here specifically. But overall, walking through these scenes in the village is convincing enough, and the game does look very good on the PS4 Pro. It's nice to see these areas running so well on the PS4 Pro, as they are among the most demanding in the game. There isn't a noticeable loss in quality either. This tower climbing sequence, for instance, looks very similar to the PC version in this area. Though if we pause right here, you'll notice lower resolution shadow maps here on the PlayStation 4 Pro. Not a huge deal necessarily in this scene, but it does give you the idea that they are using the lower quality shadows, which should be no surprise. Though in this last shot we weren't able to match up the time of day, but it's still very comparable. Thankfully, there is another way to examine the game more closely with this shot here that Square Enix released. We've captured still shots of this scene for each and every preset included with the PC version. The most obvious difference lies in the simplified depth of field technique behind Lara here. None of the presets actually line up with this. Bokeh elements are removed and the blur is less dramatic. The difference in texture quality also remains evident, of course. While the difference in bloom and light intensity in this scene is likely due to the changes being made for HDR. But that's really about it for now. It's interesting to see what changes are being made here, and we can't wait to take a look at the final game on a real PS4 Pro, with its 3 different display modes being offered. That should be pretty interesting, I think. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video and want to help support us, be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and until next time, this is John signing off.